God put you in the narcissist's life for a reason, and one of the deepest truths about that reason is this: you were sent as a mirror, not a mirror that flatters or hides the truth, but one that reflects reality back to someone who spent a lifetime avoiding it. And I know that might sound heavy or even unfair. You're thinking, why do I have to be the one to carry that burden? But listen to me, God doesn't randomly assign battles. He chooses warriors. He places light where it's needed most. And sometimes that means putting you right in the middle of someone else's darkness. Now let's get real about narcissists. They don't see themselves clearly. They operate illusions, lies they tell themselves about who they are, how they act, and how others perceive them. And then here you come, not playing their game. You ask the real questions. You notice the inconsistencies. You don't fall for the charm without asking what's underneath it. And suddenly they're not just uncomfortable, they're exposed. You didn't come into their life by accident. Your kindness, your honesty, your presence, it triggered something. It challenged their carefully constructed identity. You may not have said a word, but just by being, you reflected back to them something they didn't want to see, their true self. And that's powerful. You see, mirrors don't lie. When you walk into a room and look in a mirror, it shows you what's there. Not what you want to be there, not what you wish was there, just the truth. And narcissists avoid truth like it's poison. They curate their lives to avoid accountability, but God sent you in like a divine interruption. You became a living, breathing mirror, showing them what manipulation looks like when it stops working, showing them what control looks like when it's met with strength, showing them what deception looks like when someone finally says, I see you. And yes, they may have hated you for it. They may have lashed out. They may have cheated, lied, gaslit you, tried to turn your love into a weapon. But that doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean your reflection wasn't powerful enough. In fact, their reaction proves exactly how powerful you are. You shook something inside them that they've kept buried for years. That's not weakness, that's divine strength. Now, hear me when I say this: being a mirror doesn't mean you stick around for the fallout. Now, you're not called to be their lifelong teacher, their fixer, or their emotional punching bag. You were placed there to shine truth into a space that's been ruled by lies, and once that light hits, your assignment may be over. Your presence served its purpose. But here's where it gets real deep. Sometimes being that mirror isn't even about them. Sometimes it's about you realizing the value of your own light. You thought you were just loving someone. You thought you were just trying to help them grow. But really, God was using the situation to show you how powerful your presence is. You didn't just walk into their life. You shifted it. You disrupted the cycle. And if they cheated on you, if they disrespected you, that's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of their inability to face truth. Some people cheat not because they don't love you, but because they can't handle the way you reflect back who they really are. You make them feel exposed, insecure, vulnerable. You make them question the mask they've worn for so long. And instead of stepping into that growth, they run, they betray, they self-sabotage. But don't you dare take that personally. That's not your shame to carry. That's not your guilt to wear. That's a battle between them and the mirror, and some people break the mirror instead of facing what it shows. But even when they break it, remember this: mirrors can't be unseen. You showed them something real. You left an imprint. Whether they grow from it or not, whether they heal or stay broken, that's not on you. Your job was to reflect truth, and that job was done the moment you stood in your full authenticity. So what does that mean for you now? It means you walk forward without bitterness, but with wisdom. It means you stop questioning your worth based on their inability to recognize it. It means you stop letting betrayal define your future. If someone cheats on you, hurts you, takes your love for granted, you don't get revenge. You don't stoop to their level. You rise. Because the mirror never begs to be understood. It just is. It just shows. Let them wrestle with the image you left behind. Let them sit with the version of themselves they saw when they looked at you and couldn't run. That's between them and God now. But you keep shining. You keep walking in truth. Because that mirror, your spirit, your light, your presence isn't meant to be hidden. It's meant to transform every space you enter, just like it did in theirs. And if they couldn't handle it, that's their loss. Not yours. You might stir something in them, but you're not meant to save them. I need you to really let that settle in your spirit, because too many people walk around carrying emotional burdens that were never theirs to begin with, confusing their presence in someone's life with a responsibility to heal what only God can fix. You were the catalyst, not the cure. And there's a big difference between being used by God to awaken someone and trying to take on the role of their savior. That's not your job. That was never your assignment. See, when you're placed in the life of a narcissist or someone broken, manipulative, emotionally immature, you might notice something happen. They start changing a little. They start saying different things, acting like maybe they're finally getting it. And that can feel so rewarding, so hopeful, especially when you've invested your heart into the relationship. You start believing maybe I'm making a difference. Maybe they're starting to grow because of me. But then what happens, the moment you expect consistency, the moment you need them to show up with integrity, they cheat, they lie, they flip the script like none of that growth ever existed. And suddenly you're left with whiplash, wondering what just happened. But what happened was this: they were never ready to grow. They were only reacting to your presence. You awakened something in them, maybe something they've kept buried since childhood. Maybe a pain or insecurity they never wanted to deal with. You stirred the waters, but just because you stirred it doesn't mean it's yours to cleanse. Just because you cracked the surface doesn't mean you're supposed to dive in and clean up the mess. That's not your assignment. I want you to hear this clearly. Even if your love was pure, even if your intention was genuine, even if you gave them the best version of yourself, that doesn't mean they were ready to receive it. And that's not a failure on your part. That's just where they are. Some people are addicted to dysfunction. Some people love chaos more than peace because it's familiar. And when someone like you shows up loving, honest, spiritually grounded, it creates a conflict in their soul. They don't know how to handle someone who's not trying to manipulate them back. I don't know how to deal with someone who doesn't fold under pressure. They don't know what to do with someone who loves them and holds them accountable. And when that happens, many of them will sabotage and you'll cheat on you, lie to you, disrespect you, not because you weren't enough, but because they couldn't keep pretending. They couldn't wear the mask with you anymore. You forced them to confront the version of themselves they don't want to be. And instead of choosing growth, they chose escape. That's not love. That's fear. And you can't fix fear with more love. You can't outlove someone's trauma. You can't outgive someone's ego. You can't sacrifice yourself on the altar of their healing and then be surprised when they leave you empty. You were there to wake them up, not to carry them. You were the alarm clock, not the stretcher. God sent you into their life to plant a seed, not to water it for the next 20 years. Some of why all are sitting in relationships that expired a long time ago, thinking you're doing God's work by staying, but you're not helping them anymore. You're enabling. You're delaying your own growth because you're trying to finish a job that was never yours to finish. And here's the thing, even if they do change one day, it might not be with you. That's a hard pill to swallow, I know, but some of you were just meant to be the lesson. You were the one that shook them up, made them realize their patterns, opened their eyes to what love could be. But their growth might come after you leave. Their transformation might happen in your absence. And that's okay, because your job was never to save them. It was to be obedient to the purpose God gave you in that season. And once your part is done, you've got to have the courage to step back and let God handle the rest. You see, when a boy cheats on you, when he disrespects you, when he throws away something sacred that's not your cue to chase after him or prove your worth, that's your sign to step into your power. You don't respond to betrayal with revenge. You respond with clarity. You don't stoop down into their chaos. You rise up in your calling. Because once you understand you were only meant to stir their soul, you stop trying to babysit their process. You stop trying to change the outcome. You stop thinking their healing depends on your sacrifice. You matter. Your heart matters. Your peace matters. And you are not a project. You are not a rehab center for broken people who refuse to do the work. You are not a safety net for someone who only wants to fall and blame you for not catching them every time. You are not a savior. You're a light. You were sent to shine, to reflect, to awaken, and sometimes to walk away. So if someone couldn't rise to meet you, if they betrayed you, if they tried to dim your light because it made them feel exposed, understand this. Your role in their story was never to fix them. It was to remind them of what truth looks like. Whether they respond to that or not is their responsibility, not yours. Let them wrestle with that. Let them process the seed you planted. And you move forward with peace, with purpose, with power. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every moment you sat there wondering, why me? That pain wasn't pointless. That pain had a purpose. I know it didn't feel like it when the tears were falling. I know it didn't make sense when your heart was breaking into pieces because someone you trusted, someone you gave your all to, turned around and betrayed you like it meant nothing. But just because it hurt doesn't mean it was wasted. God doesn't waste pain. He uses it. And when he allows pain, especially at the hands of someone who was never worthy of your heart to begin with, he allows it not to destroy you, but to build you. See, you were never meant to stay the same. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in the fire. It happens when you've been brought low, when you've been humbled, when you've been disappointed in a way that shakes your soul. That pain you felt, it didn't come to break you. It came to reveal you. It came to uncover what was already inside you. Strength you didn't know you had, clarity you hadn't tapped into yet, and boundaries you never thought you'd enforce until you had no other choice. That pain grew you. It didn't feel good, but it was good for you. Now let's talk about what happens when you love someone who turns around and cheats on you. That's a wound most people don't even know how to talk about honestly, because it's not just about the act, it's about the feeling that you weren't enough. It's about the questioning, the shame, the internal dialogue that says, what did I do wrong? Was I too much? Was I not enough? That kind of betrayal attacks your identity. It makes you doubt your value. But let me be real with you, their choice to cheat on you had nothing to do with your worth. It had everything to do with their own brokenness, their own inability to handle the level of love and truth you were bringing to the table. And still, somehow, God uses even that to bless you. Because when you've been cheated on and you come out the other side still standing, still believing in your value, still refusing to shrink, that's when you know the pain served a higher purpose. That pain showed you where your power really lies. It's not in how perfect you are for someone. It's in how you recover when they show you they were never worthy of what you were offering. Some people are going to hurt you just to see what you'll do. They want to know if you'll chase, if you'll beg, if you'll fall apart. But when you rise instead, when you pick yourself up and stop trying to understand someone who didn't even understand how blessed they were to have you, that's when the shift happens. That's when pain turns into wisdom. That's when heartbreak turns into transformation. Pain has a strange way of stripping away illusions. You thought they loved you. You thought you had something real. But the pain showed you what they were hiding. It revealed the truth. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Once you've been hurt like that, you stop tolerating the bare minimum. You stop settling for breadcrumbs. You stop apologizing for needing loyalty, consistency, and honesty. That pain refined your standards. It elevated your discernment. And that's exactly why God allowed it not to crush you, but to clarify what you were actually dealing with. Some of the most powerful people walking this earth have scars that nobody sees. And those scars, they came from seasons of pain, betrayal, and abandonment. But they didn't let the scar define them. They let it remind them. Remind them of how far they've come. Remind them of what they survived. Remind them of what they deserve. That's the power of pain when you let God use it. It becomes a stepping stone instead of a stumbling block. It becomes a launch pad instead of a life sentence. Now, I need you to understand something important. Healing from pain like that doesn't happen overnight. Don't rush it. Don't pretend you're okay when you're not. But while you're healing, keep this in mind. You're not just going to survive this, you're going to thrive because of this. You're not going to come out the same person. You're going to come out stronger. It's wiser, sharper, and more rooted in your identity than ever before. When God lets you go through something painful, he's not punishing you. He's positioning you for the next level, positioning you for a love that actually reflects his heart, positioning you for purpose. But he can't take you higher if you're still tied to people who were committed to keeping you low. He had to let it hurt so you'd finally let go. He had to allow the betrayal so you'd stop romanticizing the illusion. He had to let the pain in so he could show you what peace really feels like on the other side. And let me say this to the one who still feels broken. You don't have to have it all together to be moving forward. You can still be healing and still be growing. You can still be grieving the betrayal and still be leveling up. I don't wait to feel whole to walk in your power. Walk in it now, right in the middle of the process. Because God's not waiting for you to be perfect to use you. He's using you through the pain right now. So stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? What is this pain building in me? What is this experience making room for in my life? Because once you ask the right question, you'll start seeing the purpose. You'll realize that what you thought was the end was actually the beginning of your becoming. That pain didn't break you, it revealed you. If a boy cheats, don't let it slide. I'm going to say that again because somebody needs to really hear it deep in their spirit. Don't let it slide. Not out of fear, not out of love, not because you're trying to be the bigger person, and definitely not because you think staying gives you more value. If someone disrespects you like that, your silence is not strength, it's surrender. And God didn't put you on this earth to surrender your dignity to someone who treats your heart like it's disposable. See, when betrayal shows up in a relationship, especially cheating, it's not just a mistake. It's a statement. It's them saying, I knew what we had. I knew what this meant to you. I knew what it would cost, and I did it anyway. That's not confusion. That's not weakness. That's a choice. And once someone shows you that they can make that kind of choice, your response is not to negotiate. Your response is to set a standard. Because let me tell you something, when you tolerate betrayal, you teach someone how to treat you. You give them the blueprint for how far they can go with your heart and still expect you to stay. Some of y'all were raised to believe that forgiveness means access, that if you truly forgive someone, you have to take them back, keep loving them, keep investing. But forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation. You can release someone from your heart and still refuse to let them back into your life. That's not bitterness, that's boundaries. And boundaries are what keep your peace intact after your heart's been violated. Now, I'm not saying you get revenge. I'm not saying you stoop to their level. What I am saying is this: if someone cheats on you, your job isn't to get even. Your job is to rise. Your job is to step so far into your worth that they have no doubt they lost something divine. But you can't do that if you're still holding on, hoping they'll realize what they did. Now, let me break it to you. They knew what they did. They just didn't think you'd leave. And sometimes the only way they'll ever respect you is if you do the one thing they never expected: walk away. We live in a world that glorifies being unbothered, being cold, acting like nothing phases you. But real power is being deeply affected and still choosing yourself. Real power is knowing you could make it messy, knowing you could clap back, knowing you could hurt them the way they hurt you, and choosing peace instead. Choosing closure without conversation, choosing healing without needing an apology. That's power. That's grown. That's kingdom-minded thinking. When you walk away from someone who's cheated on you, you're not just protecting your heart, you're protecting your future. Because let me tell you something, betrayal doesn't stay small. It grows. If they cheat once and you let it slide, they start to believe there's no real consequence for breaking your trust. And before you know it, your relationship turns into a cycle of hurt, apology, repeat. That's not love, that's emotional manipulation dressed up as a second chance. And I get it, some of why all are thinking, but I've been with him for years. Or he said he was sorry and that it'll never happen again. Listen, time doesn't equal value. Some of the most toxic situations are the ones we've been in the longest. Don't let the length of time fool you into thinking it has to last forever. You don't owe anyone your loyalty when they've proven they don't respect it. And apologies mean nothing without change. Words are cheap when someone's already shown you their actions. Let's be clear, walking away doesn't mean you're cold. It means you've matured. It means you've reached a level where your peace is more valuable than proximity. You don't need to keep someone in your life just to prove you're strong enough to handle pain. That's not strength, that's survival. And God didn't create you to survive abuse. He created you to thrive in love that reflects his heart. But to experience that kind of love, you've got to stop making room for the kind that wounds you. You've got to stop justifying betrayal because of potential. You've got to stop seeing someone's good moments as proof that the cheating wasn't that bad. No, let's not sugarcoat this. It was that bad. And the more you water it down, the more you delay your own healing. You deserve someone who guards your heart like it's sacred. Someone who doesn't just love you when it's easy, but honors you when it's hard. Someone who's not just faithful when they feel like it, but committed because they choose to be. But you can't attract that kind of love if you keep entertaining the opposite. The longer you stay where you're not valued, the harder it becomes to recognize real love when it finally shows up. So if a boy cheats on you, let your next move speak for itself. Don't argue. Don't beg. I don't try to prove your worth to someone who was blind to it in the first place. Just move, elevate, set a standard so high that they remember you every time they settle for less. So let your exit be the lesson. Let your absence be the awakening. Not because you wanted to hurt them, but because you finally loved yourself enough to stop letting them. There's no revenge more powerful than peace. There's no clapback louder than silence. And there's no transformation more real than the one that happens when you finally stop tolerating what was never worthy of you in the first place. So if he cheats, don't let it slide. Let it end. One of the hardest truths to accept is that just because someone broke you doesn't mean they get to witness your healing. That's not a punishment, it's protection. God is too intentional to let someone who hurt you so carelessly have front row access to the version of you that rose from the ashes. And I know that can be tough because we often want them to see what they missed. We want them to see how we bounced back, how we glowed up, how we're doing better without them. But healing is sacred. It's not for show. It's not a performance. It's a process between you and God, not you and the person who couldn't handle your worth in the first place. Let's be real. When someone breaks your heart, there's a part of you that wants validation. You want them to feel it, to regret it, to realize what they lost. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is disappear from their access. Not in bitterness, not in spite, but in wisdom. Because if someone couldn't appreciate you when you were giving your all, what makes you think they'll respect you in your recovery? If they mishandled you in your vulnerability, they are not qualified to hold space for your strength. You're not a show and tell project. You're not a redemption story that needs their applause. You don't need their recognition to validate your healing. You don't need them to see the new you in order for the new you to be real. Let them wonder. Let them hear about it secondhand. Let them feel the silence where your presence used to be. That's more powerful than any speech, any photo, any look what I become moment you could orchestrate. And look, I know the temptation. Especially when someone has cheated on you, lied to you, devalued you, you want them to know they lost something rare. But trust me, they'll know. Maybe not today, maybe not even next month, but life has a way of revealing truth. And when it does, it won't be because you forced it. It'll be because your growth became so undeniable that even from a distance, they felt the weight of your absence. But here's the shift. Your healing is not about them. It's not about proving anything. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about rediscovering who you were before you started shrinking to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. It's about remembering that your worth was never attached to how someone treated you. It was always there, waiting for you to believe in it again. Some of you are still holding on to relationships that broke you, not because you love the person, but because you want closure. You want an explanation. You want the ending to make sense. But let me free you right now. Closure is not always a conversation. It's a decision. A decision to stop needing someone who caused the wound to also be the one who heals it. That's not their role. That's between you and God. You're not crazy for wanting them to see how far you've come. That's human. But growth means realizing that their acknowledgement isn't the win. The real win is peace. The real win is being able to look in the mirror and love the person staring back. The real win is no longer being triggered by the sound of their name or the memory of the moment they walked away. That's power. That's healing. That's freedom. And here's what I know about healing. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be posted. It doesn't need to be proven. It just is. You wake up one day and realize you haven't cried in weeks. You laugh without faking it. You feel light again. You're no longer checking your phone hoping they text. You stop replaying what went wrong and start focusing on what's going right in your life. That's when you know you've stepped into your healing and you didn't need their permission to get there. Some people only come back because they see you doing better, not because they've changed, not because they regret what they did, but because your glow reminded them of what they lost. Don't fall for it. Don't confuse their curiosity with accountability. Don't mistake nostalgia for change. Protect your progress. Protect your peace. You worked too hard to get here to let a familiar face drag you back into a cycle that God already delivered you from. God's not in the business of restoring what was never rooted in him to begin with. Some relationships fell apart because they had to, because if they hadn't, you'd still be stuck trying to fix something that was never built to last. And when God pulls you out of something like that, he doesn't want you going back to prove a point. He wants you moving forward to fulfill your purpose. You owe it to yourself to heal in a space that's clean, not contaminated by old memories, not cluttered with old feelings, not shadowed by someone watching your every move, trying to see if they still have access. No, healing is sacred. And sometimes the most sacred part of healing is knowing that the person who caused the wound will never get to see the healed version of you. They forfeited that privilege the moment they decided your heart was something to gamble with. And maybe they will change. Maybe they'll grow. Maybe they'll even regret what they did. But that's not your story anymore. That's their journey now. And your job isn't to wait around hoping they evolve. Your job is to walk in the freedom you fought so hard to find. So when God elevates you, when he restores your heart, when he brings you into spaces where you're finally seen and valued, don't look back. Don't lower your light to make someone else feel more comfortable. Don't invite ghosts into the garden of your healing. You don't owe access to someone who couldn't handle the version of you that was willing to love them even through their mess. Let them miss you in silence. Let them replay their choices in the quiet. Let them feel the distance. Because when healing is real, it doesn't need to announce itself. It just moves different. And if they never get to see the healed you, that's not their loss. That's God's protection. Sometimes we think the pain was the punishment, but the pain was actually the preparation. When God lets you cross paths with a narcissist, a liar, a manipulator, someone who gaslights you, who chooses you, who drains you, it's not because he wants you stuck in suffering. It's because he knows the level of purpose he's placed on your life requires a different kind of strength. A strength that doesn't come from the easy stuff. A strength that's born in the fire. And the fire, as hot as it feels, is how gold gets refined. You might be sitting there wondering, why would God let someone like that into my life? But that's the wrong question. It's not about why he let them in. It's about what he wanted to bring out of you through that experience. Some of the most powerful, confident, purpose-driven people didn't get that way because life was kind to them. They got that way because they were forged in the kind of battles most people would have broken under. But they didn't break, they bent. They grew. They transformed. That toxic relationship, that betrayal, that season of confusion and emotional chaos, it didn't come to define you. It came to refine you. It came to expose the version of you that settles, that silences herself, that shrinks to be accepted. And it came to kill that version because your next level can't be accessed by the version of you that tolerates dysfunction just to feel loved. Your destiny demands that you show up in your fullness, in your truth, in your authority. And sometimes the only way to wake up that version of you is through a divine disruption. Let's be honest, narcissists don't show up looking like monsters. They show up looking like the answer to your prayers. They mirror what you've been craving. They study your kindness. They figure out your needs. And then they use it all to manipulate, to control, to make you question your intuition. But what they didn't count on is what God already deposited in you. Because even though they tried to tear you down, you didn't stay down. Even though they fed you lies, something inside you kept reaching for the truth. Even when they tried to make you believe you were the problem, deep down, you knew you were the prize. That knowing, that whisper in your spirit, that was God. That was him reminding you that even in the middle of manipulation, your identity hasn't changed. Even in the presence of a counterfeit, your purpose hasn't been canceled. Even in the hands of someone who couldn't see your value never decreased. And that's why God allowed it not to punish you, but to pull the blindfold off, to remove every illusion, to expose what you were calling love so you could finally see it for what it really was, a test. The narcissist was never the main character. You were. That whole chapter wasn't about them. It was about you waking up to who you really are. It was about you realizing that you are not responsible for fixing broken people who refuse to heal, that you are not called to set yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm, that you do not need to stay where you are constantly diminished just because you're afraid of being alone. God had to let you feel the sting so you'd stop confusing potential with purpose. He had to let it collapse so you'd stop trying to carry a connection that was only meant to be temporary. He had to let you walk through the valley so you'd finally stop romanticizing a person who was only sent to be a lesson, not a lifetime. And here's a beautiful part. When God lets something like that happen, he's already planned your comeback. He doesn't just allow a breakdown without also designing a breakthrough. He doesn't just permit the pain, he pairs it with a promise. But you've got to be willing to let go of what you thought you needed in order to step into what you were actually called to become. Some people were placed in your life for one reason: to activate the version of you that had been sleeping, to expose the gaps, to show you what still needed to heal. And as painful as it was necessary, because now you know what you'll never settle for again. Now you understand the importance of boundaries. Now you don't mistake chaos for passion. Now you don't confuse obsession with love. That clarity came at a cost, but it was worth it. The enemy thought he could use that person to destroy you, but all he did was give God the perfect setup to develop you. The narcissist was a tool. That's it. A pawn in a bigger plan. And now that you're upon the other side, you can see it for what it really was: not a curse, but a classroom. Not a failure, but a filter. Not the end, but the beginning of the real you showing up. You've cried. You've questioned. You've begged God to make it make sense. But now you see he didn't send you into that storm to drown you. He sent you into it so you could learn how to swim, so you could discover your resilience, so you could break free from patterns that have held generations before you captive. You are the cycle breaker. You are the history maker. And sometimes it takes the wrong person to wake up the right purpose. So no, God didn't make a mistake when he let that person into your life. He knew exactly what he was doing. He trusted you with that battle because he knew what was on the other side. And now you know too, because what came to break you actually built you. That pain had a purpose, and it was to wake you up.